For I am about to create new heavens
and a new earth,
The former things shall not be remembered,
or come to mind.
But be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating.
For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy, and its people as a delight.
I will rejoice in Jerusalem.
and delight in my people,
No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it.
or the cry of distress.
No more shall there be in it an infant who lives but a few days,
or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed.
They shall build houses and inhabit them.
They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit.
They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat.
For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands.
They shall not labor in vain,
Or bear children for calamity,
for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord.
and their descendants as well.
Before they call, I will answer.
While they are yet speaking, I will hear.
The wolf and the lamb shall feed together.
the lion shall eat straw like the ox.
But the serpent, its food shall be dust.
They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord.
The word of the Lord. Those are lovely words. I breathe a little sigh of comfort with passages like that one, or the Isaiah 11, the sister passage to this one that Daniel read at the beginning of the service. These passages are lovely and a little utopian, right? The wolf and the lamb are eating together, and it doesn't involve one of them eating the other one. And people don't die until they're 100, and at that age, it's still like they're young, which seems a little interesting to us now, but imagine it a couple thousand years ago. This passage is lovely, and it feels unrealistic. But God doesn't seem to get that it's utopian. If you look back one chapter earlier, chapter 64 of Isaiah, the people are calling out to God, and there's a central question that they're asking. And that central question boils down to, where are you, God? Chapter 65 is God's response. It's all first-person God language. And in the very beginning of it, God says, I'm right here, stretching out my arms to you. I have never left my holy mountain, but you have neglected it. God seems to think that this holy mountain is real, that it's something that people can choose or not choose to dwell on. Like Seth pointed out, it's all a little confusing. People have wrestled with how in the world to read and interpret passages like this one for as long as Christianity's been around. And we come up with some pretty interesting workarounds for passages like this. There's one whole way of reading the Bible called dispensationalism, and there are lots of different kinds of dispensationalism, but essentially it boils down to looking at all of history and dividing that into dispensations, to passages of time. And in this way of looking at things, which actually is so pervasive in our culture that most of us have a little nugget of this embedded somewhere in us, in this way of reading the Bible, of interpreting the Bible, passages like this one, passages like many of the teachings of Jesus, especially those ones that begin with, the kingdom of God is like, those parables, these are all for a future dispensation. It's a different time. It's not now. And so, God's people get off the hook. It means not needing to take passages like this one or like those teachings of Jesus seriously, because those are part of a future dispensation. Well, Anabaptists, that would be the stream that we as a Mennonite church swim in, that stream of Christianity. Anabaptists don't look at it this way. It's not how Anabaptists read the Bible. In college, I had Bible professors, who would say, as they tried to explain Anabaptist hermeneutics, Jesus meant what he said, and he meant it for us. In other words, we take Jesus very seriously. Global Anabaptism has a lot of diversity in expression of faith, in the ways that we worship, but this we have in common. We take Jesus seriously. And that means being people of the in-between, living in what some scholars call the now, not yet. There's a new world coming. It's already here. It's on its way. And what does that mean for us? We begin to live that way. We believe that God's holy mountain, which is revealed fully in Jesus, is breaking into our reality right here, right now. And so, we're not off the hook. We don't get to look at that lovely mountain as a nice piece of art that maybe someday we'll get to enjoy fully and then go on about our lives. No, when God invites us to dwell on God's holy mountain, when God says, I am right here reaching out my arms to you, we take that seriously and do our best to accept that invitation. But it's all still a little bit elusive, isn't it? Earlier in chapter 55, God has some kind of hard words. In response to that "where are you" question, God says that it's not God forsaking the people, it's the people forsaking the holy mountain. Some people, God says, have rejected the holy mountain, have instead set their tables. One translation I read said they have set their tables. They've offered hospitality to the good luck gods and the gods of fate. So they're distracted from the holy mountain as they offer hospitality to other gods. I'm wrestling with this one. Most of us don't have little stone gods that take up our time and our thoughts. That kind of idolatry is not part of this culture that we live in. But we do struggle with setting our table for other things. There's a very good world here that we live in that God has created, and sometimes those good things of this world become what we serve rather than God. And so I'm wondering, what's the line at which our attention to some of these very good things becomes idolatry? I'm interested in that individually, yes, but even more so collectively. And so I'm wrestling with that. I just came off of a 4-month sabbatical in which one of my primary goals was to look at history. and to find the ways that that informs who I am. And so I'm looking at this question of history, and I'm wondering, what's the balance of honoring history without idolizing history? Here in our congregation, we have a collective history, and we have a lot of individual histories, individual stories. So how do we honor all of that, all of what makes us who we are, and let it inform our way of being, but not let it distract us from the holy mountain breaking into our reality? Sometimes we reflect on and learn from our past in ways that lead us to the holy mountain, that almost like boost us up the mountain. And sometimes we hold on so tightly to that history that we turn away from the holy mountain and set our table for idealized glory days. I don't know the answer to what that balance is. It's communal discernment. But there's another question beyond this, what are we setting our tables for question, that might be even more important. How do we tune in to the holy mountain? So it's one thing to talk about habits that we break, identifying those habits, like that's important work. But as we learn with ourselves and with children, replacing that with something else that works a little better is far more effective. How do we notice the holy mountain? How do we notice God's reality breaking in and start to sense that new world coming that's already here and live that way? I'm going to suggest that one entry point is our senses. It's probably not surprising to you. I think I've suggested that we use our senses in other sermons and in children's time before. Kids, start us out. Can you name the 5 senses? Just call them out. Yeah? What's one? Sight? Yeah. Hearing? Yep. Sorry, what? Oh, yeah, like touch? Mm-hmm. We got 3. Yeah. Smell. One more. Yeah. Taste. There we go. We have our 5. So eyes, ears, mouth, nose, skin. We'll start with skin. How can what we feel on our skin clue us into God's holy mountain? I'll name one that I've noticed in the last couple of weeks. Have you noticed the crisp air on your skin? Even when it's raining, it feels different in the fall, doesn't it? There's this crispness to the air that lets us know, kind of tilts us toward this season that's coming, a season when the nights get longer, inviting us into rest and rejuvenation. What happens if that feel of crisp air on our skin tilts us toward this way that God cares for our bodies, for our state of mind? If we clue into that part of God's holy mountain, what would that do for us, individually and collectively? Let's do smell. How can what we smell give us some clues to God's holy mountain? Another story. A week and a half ago, on a Wednesday evening, I came into the church, and I smelled something that smelled a little bit familiar but not familiar at the same time, and followed my nose to the kitchen, where 9 women were cooking arepas. Arepas are basically the Venezuelan daily bread. It's the grain that is eaten every day in Venezuela. And here's the thing. I only knew 3 of the women who were cooking arepas. Because 6 of those women had come here to our congregation after May 6th, the date that I started my sabbatical. My nose led me to those arepas, to these women that I didn't know, and to the reality breaking in here of 41 households coming to our church, mostly from Venezuela, in the last 9-ish months. 103 individual people coming here for sanctuary, bringing along with them trauma that most of us can thankfully only imagine, bringing along basic needs like clothing and food and shelter and family and friendship, safety. Many folks without religious background or with minimal religious background. And when our new friends ask the people who are giving shelter and clothing and friendship, why are you doing this? Do you know what the response is? Do you know why? Jesus told us to. And when Jesus tells us something, what do? We do it. We take it seriously. Yeah. We are helping because we believe that Jesus meant what he said and he meant it for us. We are welcoming and changing because we are people of the in-between. This is in our DNA. We can't help ourselves. There's a new world coming, and it's already here, and so we better just begin to live that way. It's what we do. This is God's holy mountain. And God doesn't just say, "View my holy mountain." God invites us to dwell on that holy mountain, to stop setting our tables for all the distractions and instead to come and feast on the arepas, on the holy mountain, as strange and unrecognizable as it may seem with all of those wolves and lambs eating together. There's not a neat city plan for God's holy mountain, and sometimes the hike to it intimidates us. But God does say, "Here I am, reaching out to you. Come to my holy mountain. I promise it is full of love and joy and very good surprises." College Mennonite Church, God's holy mountain is right here, breaking into our reality. There is a new world coming, and it's already here, and it's on its way. What do, Seth? Take it seriously. Yes, we begin to live that way.